if you see the full cycle, how IT industry has transformed, it started with standardization, moved to democratization, then the data transformation happened, and then it is again coming back to personalization, which will be driven by AI. That is how the whole IT industry has shifted in the last 35 years. And now you're hearing AI because everybody is intrinsically looking at what is a solution for me. The hyper-personalization is driving that AI. But essentially, to do AI, you have to follow a certain sequence. There is a method to the madness. It is cloud, data, AI. You cannot do AI without data.
Correct.
Because AI has to run on data. That is extremely important. Right? So cloud, data, AI is a methodology. That is how the transition is happening. Many companies are on the cloud journey, many companies are on the data journey, many companies are on the AI journey. So that's the spectrum. And I believe it is the continuum of a digital spectrum only.
I actually want to, at this point in time, ask this question more from your vantage point of being a technologist. I mean, the world is in a constant state of flux. Technologies are changing every day. So how do you build a smarter tomorrow, a sustainable tomorrow, right? And if you can add that from how has technology changed over the years in general for businesses, and then how do you see it has had its implication in the manufacturing sector. So perhaps just generally the arc of how technology has changed over the years, and then within this manufacturing, because that's how we decide what should be our steps for a sustainable tomorrow.
So let me go back around, I can go back only 35 years because that is where I got introduced first hand to this industry when I started studying computers. And if you go back to 89, 90, I think computers were kind of in India, kind of new thing. The banks were the first one who put some computers, right? And those were those green screen terminals. I was talking to somebody that it was, we were just transitioning out of those tapes to the larger, I think 8-inch floppy drives or diskettes, as you used to call. So at that time, and this was prior to year 2000, right, Y2K.
Correct.
So it was mostly programming, right, and testing, and dot matrix printer, floppy drives, tapes. Then Y2K happened. I think 98, 99, the whole world was preparing for this completely, in my personal view, unavoidable problem.
Okay. Why do you say
it's
that?
Just 2 digits. Someone like us could have thought of it better that you put 2 extra digits there, this problem would not have come. See, if you hindsight wise, if you think about it, did it create any business value? It's just, no, it's the same date. Correct, right? So it just had to transition. But IT industry got a fillip, in my view. Everybody started working to create platforms, solutions to do that transition, right? And I was in midst of it. I actually also was a part of developing a program, automated program to convert codes which are Y2K compliant, right? So that gave a huge experience to me personally, to the entire industry, and I think IT came into a limelight, in my view, for that Y2K transition, because people do not, at that time, used to think IT as a back office. Somebody will change the tape, somebody will take the printout, somebody will do some programming at the back end. It was not a front office function at that juncture. But Y2K gave them a kind of a visibility and brought them into limelight. So that happened. Then if you recollect from 2000 to 2010, and I was in mostly in US till 2006 at the time, it was all about standardization, ERPs.
Correct.
They led the entire transformation. It was, if somebody is doing finance and accounting, it is finance and accounting. So why will you need a different software, different method in a bank versus a retail versus a manufacturing? So it can be done in a standard manner. Correct. That is where ERPs came in. They codified the business processes, functional aspect of the business processes, and then if you have an ERP implemented, then your finance is standardized, your accounting is standardized, your other functions like HR that came later on, your plant maintenance, all those modules, right? So that drove the standardization. Now in 2008, 2010, something extremely interesting happened. Entire humankind, practically speaking, in exchange of a smart screen, we gave away our privacy. That was a negotiation we did. We signed, I consent, that consent form or I accept. And after that signature, we got a smart screen and we gave up our data. And you saw the transition that all the leading tech companies, earlier it was all the oil companies who were kind of leading. So then the tech companies became
data
leader
is
because
the new oil.
So all the data is the new oil, and all of them, all the cloud infrastructure companies became data companies because there was a lot of data storage and processing that was required. It went there, right? So that transition happened. After that, something interesting, even interesting happened in around 2015. I'm putting a median number there. It's still going on. Is cloud. So data got democratized with help of cloud, where people started thinking, and they started in the West and then came in the East, is that I need not have a data center where I have to store my data. I can put my data out there in somebody else's data center, and they will take care of all the technology, the roadmap, the management, the maintenance, and all of it. It is much easier that way, right? And it is still progressing. And so with cloud, what happened? There was a lot of data democratization. The data could reach to masses.
Correct.
In the meantime, another phenomena happened. Generations changed. So Gen Z came in. From Gen X to Gen Y to Gen Z, the transition also happened in this period, and the thought process changed. So when we gave up the data, then suddenly in today's generation, people want to create their own content. They want to curate their own content. They want to consume their own content. That transformation happened. So at one point in time, we gave up our data, and now there is a clawing back. And they will only share the data if they need it to be shared, and they feel that there is a value in that transaction. So with that, personalization came in. So, or hyper personalization came in. Hyper personalization is another degree above personalization, where it is a solution for me. It can be a OTT that I want to watch this movie, or it is a personalized medicine, or whatever. That is the hyper personalization. So if you see the full cycle, how IT industry has transformed, it started with standardization, moved to democratization with help of cloud, right? Then the data transformation happened, and then it is again coming back to personalization, which will be driven by AI. That is how the whole IT industry has shifted in the last 35 years. And now you're hearing AI because everybody is intrinsically looking at what is a solution for me. The hyper personalization is driving that AI. But essentially, to do AI, you have to follow a certain sequence. There is a method to the madness. It is cloud, data, AI. You cannot start from the other end. You cannot do AI without data. Because AI has to run on data. That is extremely important, right? It is the fuel. And how will you get data? If it resides in your computer, then it doesn't work. So it has to be on the cloud or the edge, depending on the technicalities, that how fast you need it, what is the velocity, and all those technical details I'm keeping aside. So cloud, data, AI is the methodology. That is how the transition is happening. Many companies are on the cloud journey, many companies are on the data journey, many companies are on the AI journey. So that's the spectrum. And I believe it is the continuum of a digital spectrum only, and that is how it is.
Wow. I think I want to take like a lot of directions from here, but for me the fundamental takeaway, and actually never thought about it this way, like AI is not new, right? I mean, 1950s, Alan Turing, like, the first machine is when, people felt that now machines can also think, right? And of course, the evolution over the past 50, 60 years. But very rightly, you said first you need cloud where all data first goes, then you need that data which is in a form of structured, unstructured, but you need that for training, and then you have AI which can be used for hyper personalization. So I think a very interesting arc as to why this comes, and how businesses are also like in a digital continuum from that point of view. A question I want to ask you is sort of like a subsection of it in the context of like manufacturing and Tata Steel. We've seen so many transformations, right? So how does a digital transformation journey for say like Tata Steel or the manufacturing industry also look like? So much like how you drew the arc for years over the technologies, can you draw an arc of how technologies within the manufacturing industries have changed over the years? Like much like what people say industry like 4.0, 5.0, right?
Yeah. So let me first define Industry 4.0 because that's a larger gamut. Then I will talk about Tata Steel and then kind of draw a picture about manufacturing industry. Now, Industry 4.0, it's a Western template. It has come from Germany, right? It's a German template. And we have to, this is an important point, because we have to keep that in the back of our head if we want to apply it in India. And there is a difference. When I apply it in Netherlands or in Tata Steel Netherlands or any other Western companies, and you apply in India, there are some nuances that we need to be cautious about. Industry 4.0, in my view, it is an efficiency engine.
Okay.
Is focused on, in a manufacturing context, again, yield, energy, throughput, quality and productivity. It's a machine which makes you more efficient, or a machine which drives efficiency. It takes cost out and can do more with lesser cost. That's the fundamental of Industry 4.0.
Okay.
Now it can be in automobile, it can be in steel, it can be in retail, it can be anywhere. Right? Now, and a myriad of technology will be underneath Industry 4.0, and we can keep on going on the technology stack. But I feel there is Industry 5.0, we have started talking about it. It's a template that, again, is a Western template out of Germany. But the point is, I am looking forward to Industry 5.0 template adoption, because I believe that somewhere Industry 4.0 arguably has created a competition between human and machine, in my view.
Okay.
And why so? Because when you are driving efficiency, and bring in the context of India, where the human capital is abundantly available,
correct,
versus a Western world, here sometimes it can act as a threat
to jobs and livelihood.
Yeah, is the technology going to do what I am doing today, then what I am going to do tomorrow? That's a question obviously people will ask.
Correct.
And if this question is not addressed, then either you have a surplus manpower which you are not putting to the right leverage. So that is not right. So the point is that Industry 5.0 brings in empathy. How human and machine can coexist.
Okay.
And that is extremely important to understand, because in the context of India, where the demography is different, there is a human capital here, and we have to take care of livelihood. It is our responsibility and moral and social responsibility. We should adopt empathy, that is the coexistence of human and technology. How to make humans more efficient, how to give them a safer environment, right? How to make them more productive. That is how you drive Industry 5.0. Just not mindless efficiency that take the cost out. It doesn't work.
Correct.
Where you have less humans, you possibly use a robot to do something, because you don't have humans to do the job. I'm just making up.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? But where you have somebody to do that job, you will focus on how to make that person more efficient or give more a safer environment for that person to do the job.
Right.
Right? That is where the thought process should be. That is where 4.0 and 5.0 both plays a role. Right? It is not that just drive cost out. So in that context, if you look at our industrial journey, industrial transformation in Tata Steel, and that's a different context, because, and that will give you a lot of insights on the manufacturing side of it. We are essentially a mining and steel manufacturing company. We have our own mines and till date. So, and these are in very remote locations. Okay. And I jokingly keep on saying to my TCS friends or the IT fraternity is that you won't find an IT consultant in the jungles of, in the forest where we actually operate. We don't normally go there. You are normally, the IT industry is in the metros, right? So the point here is how to, and when I joined in 2018, one of the key thing, a gap, and there was a lot of work that was being done prior to that to seed in the investment and all that. The connectivity. The network connectivity was possibly around 8 Mbps or something, which is extremely, even at home people have 50 Mbps and 150, all that. So the first thing is to create that backbone. See, no digital is possible without a very strong IT backbone. Infra layer. So we collectively as a team, we sat together and created a framework, which is a 7-layer architecture, as I call it. That's the backbone of our digital transformation, looking into the future. So, two goals. One is to do what is the fundamental. Second is to make it future ready. These are the two
ready
key
for
levers.
Tomorrow.
Ready for tomorrow. So, the fundamental layer was that first we have to invest a lot on the infra, that is the network. Because without network there is no point. There is no digital, right? First you have to have connectivity. You can work on an app and I can give you an app and I don't give you a connectivity, you will throw me out, right? So it's not something that we can do. As soon as I create network, I'm putting data in motion. I'm connecting
Correct. Packets of information.
Packets of information. So cyber security becomes paramount. So you have to make a huge upfront investment on cyber security.
Correct.
Right? That you just cannot avoid. So we started investing there. And then the third degree, as I said, is the cloud. That is the base layer. So you take the data center out of your premises, because be it rain, be it dust, be it the weather
Fires,
conditions and all that, why should I manage all that?
Correct.
And I don't get the recent technology. On cloud, you don't have to worry about it, right? So there are debates about private and public, and I will talk about it later, but then we created that as a base layer.
Okay.
I call it build the road before building the car. So that's the
Makes
fundamental
sense.
aspect, right, of any transformation. Then after that was the sensorization, because steel, if you see, is actually remote. It's a immensely physical industry, but you cannot go towards the molten metal. High temperature vibration,
Yeah.
the physicality, the hazards of it, it's a hazardous sector to work in, right? So you're essentially working from a distance, looking at the temperature, looking at the operations, looking at the, so there is a lot of sensors.
Correct.
And when you have sensors means there is a lot of data.
Correct.
So we built it as the first is the network, cloud and cyber layer, then the sensorization layer, that is we call the level 2 and the level 1 systems.
Correct.
Then the level 3 is the enterprise application layer. You need the enterprise layer applications to kind of capture the data from the level 2 systems,
And make
and
sense
then
of it. Yeah.
we talked about the data layer. That is the most crucial, the most boring, most difficult, seldom understood. Nobody wants to work on data.
Yeah. But most
Everybody wants to
important,
work
yeah.
on AI, everybody wants to work on cloud, but nobody wants to work on data.
Correct.
And that's the fundamental challenge. So that is the macro layer. So if you take these 4 layers, I call it the macro, which the IT team has to invest on, think about, design, architect, and keep it future ready. Always see that, okay, what is the new thing, and should I focus on edge now, should I focus on 5G, should I create a private network, should I go for public cloud or private cloud, how do I balance it, how do I create a distributed architecture, all those technology brain power goes into that macro. A lot of investment has gone in Tata Steel, thanks to our management, that we have invested money in that.
Okay.
And that was extremely important to create that fundamental backbone. Then comes additional 3 layers, I said 7 layers, these are the 4.
Correct.
The third layer is fundamentally analytics and insight. So you do a lot of data science, first principle data science,
Correct.
and then AI, right, on top of it. And the third and the 7th layer is the visualization. End of the day, you don't see any of this. The 6 layers are not visible to human eye.
Correct.
What you see is a screen. How do we design the screen? How do we transmit that information at the consumption layer?
Yeah.
That is critical. So these 7 layer architecture we kind of copyrighted and we started with, and that has been the bedrock, and we tweaked it only twice or thrice. We just put some generative AI there, we put some data and AI, we clubbed it together, because we thought that if I don't put data and analytics and AI together, it becomes a problem, because then the data guy will say, I've given you the data, the analytics person will say, I did not receive the data in the same format that I needed, on the structure I needed. So this 7 layer has served us extremely well. So there is a method to this whole transformation, right? And it is still going on. There is no end to it, because we keep on maturing this this concept. Now, if you look at overall industry, that is how we did the Tata Steel transformation. As a result, we have around today 582 models, AI models, running in production, and that is that, including Europe and India. So, if I stop any of these models today, business will get impacted. That is the digital footprint.
So you're saying it's like actually in business.
It is actually used by business. It is done by business, and these micros are driven by business. It is business own transformation.
Correct.
I can do the macro as an IT guy, but if my business guy does not ask the question, so they ask the right question, this is the problem I am facing, this is the problem I need to be solved, this is my issue.
Correct.
Then only an IT guy can try to solve for that problem together along with business.
Correct.
And then the KPI will move, and we measure what is the value that is coming out of it.
Interesting.
So one is that. Second is that we have a lot of connected platforms. We have a connected workforce platform, connected process platform, connected transactions platform. So those are platforms, because if you do not create an unified platform, you will create silos, and then the value is maximized at the interfaces.
Correct.
So if you create a platform, you get value maximization, and it's a force multiplier, right? So that is how we have transformed till date. And as I said earlier, so the next goal is we have achieved a lot on manufacturing excellence. If you come to our plants, you can see an integrated remote operations control center.
Okay.
Where it is first in India. I learnt it from the oil and gas industry in US because you have to do it because
Correct, yeah.
you have a rig in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, remote drilling and all
remote,
of these.
and you have to do that. So here, if you see, all my agglomerates business, Tata Steel's business, is running out of that remote center, including the operator who used to be in the hot
Correct.
site.
Correct,
And
yeah.
is an air conditioned room looking at the LED screens and taking decisions, because the analytics and AI is giving insights, and
Right.
you have a real time view, a feed, that what is actually happening in operations. There is an emergency response team,
Correct.
and it was a mindset issue. So I said that, okay, if you are operating that from 30 meters away, you can also operate from 10 kilometers away. All our mining operations, raw material operations are actually managed from 350 kilometers away,
Okay.
supervised. Today there is a regulation that you cannot actually do the control. Agglomerates we are actually controlling, the DCS control and all of that. In mines there is a regulation, you have to be at site to control, but we are given the supervisory control layer remotely 350 kilometers away.
Wow.
Right. And then we have created, all the coke plants are consolidated in one room in a remote center. There were 25 coke plants operations, it is just one room now.
Wow.
So you can operate from there. And then there is an integrated maintenance excellence center, where the whole maintenance activity of operations is actually visually, it is coming to one room. You exactly know what is the corrosion that is happening. Is it required, does it require an intervention now, or this can wait? So it is all about predictive maintenance. You don't need to do a time-based maintenance today.
Correct.
It is all condition-based maintenance, right? And then you go for predictive maintenance. What possibly is going to fail, right?
Correct.
All those is possible digitally. End of the day, it is voice, data, video, real-time capture at the same time.
Yeah.
Essentially, that is the underlying layer to keep it very simple, right? But that is the power. But that is driving our manufacturing excellence, and we can do more. The other program is the customer excellence experience, where we are trying to understand the customer and seeing that how digitally, and we are learning from the FMCG, learning from the retail industry, all of us have experienced that. Can we bring that experience in steel?
Right.
So that is where we are driving. I think in manufacturing, if we extrapolate this, I talked about industry 4.0 and 5.0 and the empathy. We have to keep that view in India. That is important. Personally, I feel that that is extremely important. And we really have to have a structured approach. There is a lot of investment, upfront investment needed. You always cannot justify the return on investment in the word go. Right. So you have to have a directional view. You need that management commitment to do that. But during COVID, all of us realized that, okay, all the investments were wise, because within no time you could transition to remote working.
Interesting. So
within no time, it just seamlessly transitioned to remote working, right? So I can keep on going, but I think that is, if you have a fundamental architecture to drive transformation, if you focus on sensorization, understand the context of your industry, and cloud data AI is the macro framework that you have to follow. I would request people should not start on AI, because AI is first principle, data science, generative AI today, and there is a lot more. But without data, it will not make much sense. So.
And to get that data, you need like the infra layer that you've said.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
I think, to me personally, I think it's the heart of the discussion that you spoke about, because the foundations led to you building these systems, and these systems are actually driving business value. I think that's how Tata Steel is building like a better tomorrow. So I think kudos to you and the team for doing this. As a CIO, how do you think about, like a virtualized data layer that you were mentioning some time ago?
What AI can do is, if I can use that analogy, that you don't need to go to work, work will come to you.
But I'd want to know the real Jayanta outside of work as well.
Do we have an India stack? We take a lot of pride in UPI.
Correct.
But that's good.